Welcome to My Forever Home, the podcast. I'm Frances Cosway and I've helped hundreds of people create forever homes. I can't wait to share the journey with you. So let's start. Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of My Forever Home, the podcast, as part of the Sustainable Homes and Living season. I'm really excited today to have the Vice President of Oceania, Itay Shimony from Cosentino, here with me today to talk about all the amazing sustainability measures that Cosentino are introducing and have already introduced with their products. Now, I've been working with Cosentino for years now. For those of you who have heard me speak on the podcast or who have worked with me know that we are really big in supporting Cosentino for many, many different reasons. But with their products, Dekton, Silestone and Sensor, which we predominantly specify for benchtops in all areas of the home. I love the durability and the zero maintenance of Dekton, the different finishes available in Silestone coupled with the Nano Protect and the consistency offered with Sensor as a natural stone. More recently, there's been a lot of controversy around engineered stone, which is also known as reconstituted stone, particularly the silica content of this material and the impact this has on the health for the stonemasons working with that stone. So it was music to my ears when I understood from Cosentino, and they announced earlier this year that they were reducing the amount of silica in their engineered stone, Silestone, and reducing the silica content far below the industry requirement. Then with the launch of carbon neutral Dekton earlier this year, along with the amazing new colours that they've launched as well, the sustainable credentials for Cosentino are certainly something to take note of. So today I'm really happy to welcome Itay on the show. Itay has over 20 years experience with the international stone surfacing industry, and 18 years of that has been involved with Cosentino. So almost born and bred into Cosentino, working with the Israeli, American, and now the Oceania markets. Itay brings with him an incredible amount of knowledge and passion for telling the Cosentino story about their developments and, most importantly, their journey for sustainable and environmentally conscious surfacing and stone products. Itay has worked on incredible international projects focusing on Dekton's diverse applications, which we'll touch on today, with facade projects such as the Toha building, Microsoft headquarters, and the Ramat Avi Mall. I'm so pleased to welcome Itay on the podcast today, and thank you for joining me, Itay, today.
Thank you very much, Frances, and thank you for having me on the podcast today.
It's fabulous. I mean, I've seen you at all the launches, so it's so awesome to be able to have you on the show. So I've already read out that you've been part of Cosentino for such a long time, worked in so many different markets. So for someone that's been with Cosentino for so long and also really part of the sustainable story, tell me, how important is sustainability to Cosentino?
I think it's a great question, and you need to really understand the company, the family, and the mentality in order to understand it. And I think something that us as a company, as a family, understand that any change we want to make, any difference needs to start with us. And in the last, I would say, 15 years, part of the biggest focus and investments in our company is driven to the direction of sustainability. And it goes even deeper because for the ones that know Cosentino knows that we just, we started about 45, 50 years ago, coming from a small village in the south of Spain. And everything started from a vision of our CEO today, Paco Cosentino, that saw the amount of wastage that we generate while working with natural stone. And again, these days it was mainly natural stone. Where we are in south of Spain is an area of quarries. And by looking at the area that we're working with, seeing the amounts of wastage led us to part of our biggest products today, specifically silestone, with the idea, hey, how can we take all of this wastage and create a new product, a man-made product that reuse the wastage? So of course, silestone and then later Dekton, the rest of our product had many changes and advancements throughout the years. But the core idea over 35, 40 years ago started then. And another point that mentioned to understand, because sustainability is not just our actions toward our environment, is also towards our community. We started our factories that today is an industrial city in a very small, far away area in south of Spain, not very close to the big ports, that in an area that is not developed, is not the big industrial area in Madrid or in Barcelona. And even today, when we are 6,000 people around the world, when we are with a revenue of more than $1.5 billion, we still stay at the same place because we understand that the same small communities that we grew together, the same families that was the backbone of the company, we are there for them today. And we are not just living and moving to the next place that we are getting more tax elevations and everything that come with it. And in order to do that, because being far away, of course, it affects also the way that you need to use more transportation, and eventually it leads to more environmental impact. But for that reason, we basically help the local government to develop new ports. And for this example is the port of Almeria. Ports that haven't been used in a big industrial use, but because of the size of Cosentino, we basically develop in order to eventually decrease the distance that we need to cover.
That's great. So it's not just looking at the materials and the wastage and so forth, that you're really looking at the whole closed economy, which I want to touch on with you. And I didn't say this at the start, but Cosentino is still, for the listeners out there, is still made in Spain. So it was established in Spain, as you said. It's still made in Spain, where a lot of the other products are not made in Europe. And I wonder whether, because I find that the European mentality is very pro sustainability. So I wonder whether that's also why you're very much ahead of the game in terms of sustainability rather than some of the other competitors. The Spanish mentality is, is wrapped up in that whole European culture, I believe, anyway.
The Spanish mentality is very important. And for the one of us that visits that part of Spain, we know that renewable energy that comes from windmills is very big there. You can see, all the big turbine when you drive through the coast of south of Spain. So of course, being part of the European community and, we don't alter or change our belief to move to the next plant that manufacture cheaper in order to eventually increase our profit per share. So it's all about the core values. And as you said, it's being part of the European community, but also it's being part of a family.
Yeah.
Fact that we didn't run after the money, the investments of the capital market, and then we stayed a family. That the cause of the family, the cause of the European market, everything bundled together to what we do today.
So what specifically is, so just in terms of letting the listeners know what Cosentino is specifically doing. So what are you doing to become a more sustainable company? So I referenced the things like the silica. So it's not just about the materials, but in your manufacturing, you talked about waste. Just what are some of the things that you're doing that are really making a difference to the sustainable credentials, I suppose, of the company?
So it's a process that started in 2008 and even before that, but let's say officially in 2010. So if we look at the timeline of Cosentino, so in 2008, we basically started to work according to the ISO 14001. So the system certifications. And then it leads us basically throughout it in 2009, for the first time, we are publishing our official CSR. So our corporate social responsibility. And it goes through the commitment that we took ourselves that in 2011, we are launching for the first time our Silestone Eco as a product. So long before, today sustainability burns and it's so important that you find it in any other speech. But these are the early days in 2011. I remember that in 2008, I was listening to the first inauguration of Barack Obama. And it was one of the first times that in official speech, the word sustainability was repeated more than 20 times. But that days that it was the days that everyone started to be more involved. So we are launching the Silestone Eco, and of course, releasing and working together with the EPD, with the international EPD system as in the environmental product. Then later in 2015, we are part of the Affluent O, and later on in 2016, we are doing the same EPD, the same environmental declaration for Dekton. Later on, 2018 actually, we are basically first time joining the COMA, and a lot of R&D's investment in the company into circular economy and what we need to do, how we need to improve it. And of course, later on, we'll touch more about what we're doing in terms of circular economy.
Oh, you can cover it now. Oh, sorry, Itay, go on.
Yeah, I will go. And also launching the EPD for Silestone. And then 2019, things are even accelerated, and we are joining and starting to work according to the ISO 2400, getting declaration for Dekton as carbon neutral for the first time. So when we said before that we launched, so this year we launched few new series of colors, of designs with Dekton as carbon neutral, but Dekton carbon neutral was launched already in early 2020, and where according to the ESG 13, we are able to credit the product as carbon neutral, and together with Silestone Hybrid. Now, you said it before regarding the silica levels. And again, sustainability is what we are doing toward our community. And our ecosystem in Cosentino is the stonemasons, because for many years, of course, today the company developing are doing many other things. But for many years, we are manufacturing slabs, whether it's Silestone, Dekton, or processing natural stone, and we were selling it to the stonemasons. Now, this stonemason is working with Silestone, with any other products that were high, that basically was mainly quartz, and quartz containing crystalline silica. And although many years of education of how to work correctly with the product and using the right PPE and all of the ongoing sharing of knowledge with everything, we still saw that the sickness of silicosis is increasing. And in markets that are more saturated with these engineered stone or recon, people are getting sick, and people are even dying. And this is something that we as a manufacturer understood, that after so many years that we are together with the rest of the big producer of these products in the industry, to educate sometimes maybe it's not enough. And you know, there is in the law, there is the phrase of paternalism. What is the level that we actually need to stop educate and we need to start to act? And we decided,
what's your level of silica now in your products? Because there's specific numbers that I know.
So it's incredible. We have some products, and especially like the Sunlit collection or the Loft collection, to our newest series, the silica level can go down to 5%. And we are talking about a product that was 95%.
Wow, so you've gone from 95% silica to 5% in some products.
Yeah, so what we are doing today, so when we launch Hybrid, we launch it in 2 levels. In some of the products, we decrease it below 50%, and some of the products, we decrease it below 10%. So of course, because we are using in raw materials that are changing, and sometimes the change within the specific quartz or any other raw material can change it. So we are working in a wider terms. But, you know, because we are working today with WorkSafe Victoria, so we needed to credit the products with a local laboratory here in Perth. And we find out that some of the products go as low as 5%. Now, that's the same Q50 that we use all around the world, specifically because of the Australian market. And here I think it's a moment to congratulate WorkSafe Victoria and Victoria legislature as the first state that created the benchmark for engineered stone. What is engineered stone? So the first time the legislator here decided, and through a legislation that kicks off in 5 days, that any product that consists more than 40% of crystalline silica together with resin will be considered as engineered stone. And because of it, Cosentino, so hey, there is a legislator out around the world. So the same Q50 is now being transformed, and we added another level of investment in order to create a Q40 product. So moving on in Australia and New Zealand, and eventually all around the world, we will sell silestone products that are only Q40 and Q10. And we are also separating it because at the end of the day, there are so many colors and so many designs, but we are also giving the client and our A&D community as the one that has sometimes the responsibility to make the right choices, the freedom to choose. They can choose silestone Q10, and then they know they were working with products that has at least below 10% of crystalline silica. And again, 95 to 10. But whatever.
So, I mean, that's definitely something that we talk to our clients about in terms of making sure. I mean, we have actually had a lot of clients talk about the silica because, as you've just mentioned about Victoria, there's been a lot of press about silica in the products. And I suppose homeowners have been concerned that that's going to affect them in their homes. So we've had a lot of questions around that and educating them around it's actually the stonemasons. But it's been really beautiful to hear from our clients saying we don't want to specify a product that's going to affect the health of someone else. Now, that's not always the case. People are sometimes just, well, that's the product I want. But we've had a lot of people come to us saying, we want to make sure that we're choosing a safe product for everyone, not just the fact it's going to be safe in their home. So it's fantastic that they can now, come to us or we educate them about specifying the Q10 or the Q40 to make sure that that level of silica is lower. Now, I saw an amazing photo on the Cosentino website of the factory, and it's just covered in solar panels.
Yep.
So tell me, you already alluded to, wind energy. What sort of renewable energy is the factory using? I think I heard you say at the launch of carbon neutral Dekton that you are 100% renewables. You're running off 100% renewables. Was that me? Is that accurate? Or it's pretty
accurate.
Close to?
No,
it's accurate.
We are
so the whole factory and manufacturing process is run off 100% renewable energy. See, that's just incredible. And I encourage listeners to actually have a look at the Cosentino website. You've got a whole tab on sustainability. That image is just incredible. The entire roof is solar panels.
Yep. So we created basically the biggest privately owned a photovoltaic farm in Spain.
Wow.
And today we are increasing and building it, but today about 20% of our consumption is done through our solar plant. And the rest of it, we are only buying electricity that comes from renewable energy. But it's not just about the electricity, it's also about the water waste.
Yes.
30 water waste treatment. 99% of the water that we are using in our industrial city are recycled. Now we need to understand the quantities. We're talking about a consumption that equal of a city of 150,000 people. And 99% of the water is being recycled.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you're recycling it as you're producing the products, or you're using recycled water as you're making the products?
So both. So we are recycling the water that we're using. We are treating them. So this is why we built all the water waste treatment, and we're also using recycled water.
Yeah, that's just fantastic. So that's sorry, go on, Itay. That's just incredible.
But we started to talk about recycling, but also recycling the products by crediting Dekton as a cradle to grave product. It's another layer of us recycling the product using, and in many different layers, from the layer of recycling the powder, crushing any surplus of material, creating powder again and reusing it again, and also to the fact that we are taking end product from the end user, bringing it back. And of course, there we need, of course, to calculate the carbon footprint. It depends where we're bringing it around the world, but we're using it as a new product. So in many different layers, because we need to say the truth. The construction industry is one of these industries that has a big impact.
Massive.
Now, if we will not start there, and if big corporate that today own the control of the market, has the ability to do research and development, if it will not start with us, it's a problem. And there is, it's a commitment, and then it goes, because this commitment doesn't come from a void. And as you said before, you're part of the European community, you're part of a family, and all of these, all of these beliefs that you're growing with, that you're developing with, eventually lead you to take a big part of your EBITDA and direct it back to research and development.
I mean, it's really beautiful that you're talking about it. It's a family business, but we're talking about community. We're talking about, making it better for the community, but then also sustainability then affects internationally how people are using the product, but how it's produced in the community. It just touches so many different things. But then more and more people are looking for sustainable products. So then it gives you an advantage anyway, because people are making smarter choices about using products and choosing from companies that do actually want to make a difference and that already are making a difference. And I think just if I listen to my clients or our clients, that we encourage them to, or they like going, I should say, they like going to family businesses because they're just run in a different way as well. So Itay, you talked earlier about the circular economy. Could you explain, just talk to me about how that circular economy works at Cosentino, what it is and how it works at Cosentino, because I think it's a really important thing for people to understand.
Definitely. So when we look at circular economy in Cosentino, like any other big corporate, we are dividing it to 6 main pillars: provisioning, designing, producing, distributor, the way that our organization is building, and then recycling. So I will try to touch component by component and to explain what we are doing in Cosentino. So first, talking about provisioning, and this is where we start with our procurement departments and looking at the raw materials and servicing that we are acquiring in order eventually to produce our products. So it's an approach of sustainable purchasing and raw materials of services. So this is what I mentioned before, the ISO 2400. So we were one of the first companies in the world obtaining the sustainable purchasing certification. It's a big investment done by our procurement department, but it started in 2018 by joining to the COMA and getting the European certification, the ISO in 2019. And then what are we doing through the future? The action plan of adapting the process to the ISO 2014 and improving, working only with sustainable raw materials, only buying from companies that like us, making sure to reduce the footprint of a purchasing product.
So that means right at the start, before you've even, everything that, all the components that are going to make up the products that you're producing must come from sustainable sources.
True.
So that's just step one.
True. So we are in a process of moving everything by planning. Now, it goes from introducing recycled raw materials and also increasing, we said before that some of our products like Silestone, but then later Dekton came as an evolution, were product that has a raw, base raw material and resin. Now, resin also, it's a problematic. Put aside it's problematic. Put aside that the world today around the world increase the cost of resin dramatically. So what are we doing? What is our responsibility? So I can tell you that our responsibility is to increase the bio and recycled origin of resins. So part of the change today with Silestone to hybrid is not just to change the quartz as a raw materials in order to reduce the crystalline silica, but the move from the fuel resin to bioresins that usually are coming from corn.
Yeah. And I was going to say petroleum products. Yeah.
So this is first number one. This is the provisioning, the planning, working our procurement department. Next step of the circular economy, everything comes with design. So we know where we are going to buy and where we are going to source. Now, how we are building products and designing new products, because In the end of the day, we are a company that needs to bring novelties. In order, we need to stay updated. Big part of the industry is like fashion. You need to reinvent yourself. You need new colors. So how we designing new products and new colors that will stay with the same level of commitment. So here we discussed before about hybrid. So this is why the last two big launches, the Sunny Days and the Loft, were made with colors all below, all considered as a Q10, below 10%. And again, producing silicon hybrid today only with the key main pillars. So recycled glass and materials, some colors can go up to 50%. Recycled water only with the water treatment we are doing today, and 100% of renewable energy. Now, the new formulas that we are using with, there are everything and every side of the product is with products and with technologies, and this is why we are working with universities in Spain and other parts of Europe in order to find the next level of materials. And I will tell you a small story. Part of the challenge to create hybrid is how to replace the quartz, because the quartz was so dominating in engineered stone. And we were going with two avenues. One, identifying a new raw materials, feldspar, that can help us to replace the quartz, but it wasn't enough. We needed to redesign quartz, and we needed to create artificial quartz for it. And by creating, by the process of creating an artificial quartz, we needed basically to extract the molecules that eventually leads to the crystalline silica. So, you know, I always try to give it when I speak with our industry. It's not the same, but think about decaf. By taking something which is more basic, but extract. Now, put aside that decaf is not healthy, but today they are trying to do for the first time not to use a chemical reaction with decaf, but just as a concept of us taking something that was so clear for so many years that quartz contain crystalline silica and creating an artificial quartz that doesn't contain crystalline silica.
But that's just the advancement of technology as well, the ability to really challenge how we're producing this and the materials that are going in there. Because as you say, quartz is just, it's been such a massive component of all of these reconstituted engineered stones. So just the fact that technology is now helping you to recreate those molecules so that you can create it in a different way.
But you know, Francis, technology is there, but technology costs money.
It does.
And many companies battle with the question is, should I go and produce in a place the technology is not the most important, but there are several costs, or I will defer big part of our earnings into research and development and harnessing the technology and investing. And here in Cosentino, we basically separated the R&D division from the production one in order to create an entity that not only design products, but leads a transformation and has its own budgets just in order to reduce. So the technology is there, but you need to use them. You want to use to invest in order to bring these new products.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're talking about now the next part was the design and so forth. So what's the next stage in the circular economy?
Production. So production, design, and production. So what are the best, as we just talked, the best available technology?
Yeah, we have.
So many things that, you know, it started with the evolution since 2005. So we started with 6 lines of silestone. 2010, we grew only to 11 lines of silestone, help us to be much more efficient and to creating less weight. In 2013, we talked until now mainly about silestone, but Dekton came to the world. Dekton in many levels is the next evolution of products. Now, as a company that dealt for so many years with natural stone on one side and with silestone on the other side, Dekton represents the best of the two worlds. So of course, as a company today, because in any way there is a commercial aspect behind it, we are working both with silestone and Dekton together. But Dekton is a future. Dekton is a company, and this is why it was credited as a carbon neutral product. We are able to be more efficient, more mechanized and robotized, to recycle bigger parts of the materials that we're using with it, not using resin at all. So through the evolution, and I always say that Dekton is an evolution of silestone. So after so many years, Dekton came to the world, and then we kept investing in Dekton while still investing in silestone, but not being afraid to change silestone. You know that today, as a company, for us, silestone is not a quartz surface anymore. It's a mineral surface. After 30 years.
Which is what Dekton is as well. So
what Dekton is as well, exactly.
Compressed minerals. Just for the listeners, there is a whole podcast available, and I'll put it in the show notes, talking about the differences between silestone or reconstituted stone and then also Dekton. So if you're feeling like you need a little bit more information on these products, because they are incredible, because today we're talking about sustainability, I'll put in the show notes the links to the episodes where I talk about in more detail the silestone and the Dekton products. And so after production then, Itay, so because we talked about that before as well. So what comes after production in terms of the circular economy?
So after production comes distribution, but I want to stay in production a little bit more because there are one thing that I didn't cover, and it's health and safety within production. As a company, we invested more than 200 million euros in the last 3 years on health and safety and automation of our production lines.
And that's also going back to the values of the company around community. You want to look after your community, you want to look after your workers. So that is really heavily linked with the values of Cosentino to spend that money on health and safety.
Yep, definitely. So it's to produce, is to make sure you use a better product, but also taking care of the people using it. So moving forward, the next layer will be distribution. So as a global company that operates today, we can find our products in more than 110 countries around the world. Distribution is a very important point. How do we make sure, because distribution, again, it's a very problematic part, especially as a company that is committed to calculate the carbon footprint. So here, it's very important first to understand that we are combining a lot of natural gas. And of course, by moving to bioenergy and working, as I explained before, with a port, we basically rebuild the port in Almeria that was never used for big industrial purposes, in order to make sure that we're using a port that it's much closer to our industrial city in Spain.
That's amazing.
Making sure that all of the production facilities are in the same place, so you don't need to move raw materials. And again, put them on the trucks float more carbon to the atmosphere, and everything comes with it. So we are centralizing everything in one place in order to improve it. Talking about the way that we transport, so immobiliarity and optimization of services, doing agreement with shipping companies in order to make sure that, for example, all the clear on deck, all the custom actions that usually, again, you need a truck to go to some place specifically, walk, then go back to the port. We're doing it in our factory in order to reduce the movement of the truck. And then it goes to the next layer, that we are building our own distribution points and making sure to stock more and more products on the local level that you need less handling. So if, for example, in 2014, we had 81 Cosentino centers, today, overall, we have more than 160 locations in less than 10 years. Making sure that we are centralizing everything.
Yeah, which obviously gives you cost efficiencies, but then you're also minimizing the amount of transportation and so forth. And as you said, handling as well.
Correct.
So in terms of the trucks that you use and, you know, the ships and all that sort of stuff, and I mean, you've already talked about the transport, you know, coming from Spain to Australia as an example. So any of the corporations that you're using in terms of the transportation, are they using biofuels and so forth?
So the answer is yes. It's part of the agreements that we are making with these big carriers.
Yes.
But you cannot control it all. And especially
No.
in times that, there is more congestions in the ports and the amount of vessels that we're using. But the most important is for us to get the accurate data out of the shipping lines, because then it allows us to reduce the impact that we are doing in any part of the 6 main channels in order to eventually reduce the footprint. So we cannot control the shipping companies, but by us getting the right information of what they are doing, allowing us to invest in other parts of the process in order to eventually reduce the footprints.
Okay, and that's all. Would that then take into account offsetting as well? So at least you've got the information that you're able to do something to counteract that, because of course you can't control the shipping companies. So we've got 5. What's the last one? Will be about recycling.
The last one is recycling. Absolutely. So it's product. So first we have, when it's come to product recycling, so we have insight and life recycling. So it's a process that comes from the factory to the raw materials, whether it go directly to clients or the Cosentino centers, and then through it to the stonemasons. I can tell you that with the stonemasons, a big issue is all the wastage that's being generated at the stonemason side.
Yes.
In any stonemason, you see it as a big, a dumpster bulk with so many wastage of material. So us working together with them and municipalities in order to use this wastage to construction material, to gravel and everything that come with it. Now, I can tell you that specifically here in Australia, and this is very interesting, for many years, they were using the waste together with the municipalities as gravel, but then all of the silicosis problems came, and then all of a sudden the municipalities stopped the use and say, hey, we are not going to take this material anymore because it has such a high level of silica, so we're basically moving the problem somewhere else. And what we are doing today is working together with the stonemason municipalities and say, hey, but when we are using silestone high brick, you don't have this problem. So we can still reuse the raw material at the stonemason part in order to use gravel and for construction materials. And this is why we're working so closely together with Works at Victoria. And we are pitching for it also to get an exemption to say, hey, silestone is not an engineered stone anymore. Now, it's not only from the commercial use. The Australian government, the federal level, basically commissioned a study that called the NDDT report. And part of the conclusions of the report is basically, there are two. It says on one side, if by 2024, it was done already in 2021, there won't be any positive change the way that industry using with this engineered stone, they will consider to ban the material. Whether it will happen or not, we cannot control it. And it can be a banning of material, or it can be adding high tariffs in order to say, hey, if we are importing to the company high level of silica, then you will need to pay a bigger amount of tax as a tariff, same as they did in cigarettes, very, very smartly here in Australia. Yeah. But and the second point is basically a cry for help for the big manufacturers. Say, hey, manufacturers, I want to see the same manufacturer that come and change his product. And for us working together with Works at Victoria and trying to get the exempt for silestone hybrid is saying to the market, hey, it's possible.
Correct. And so other suppliers will have to do the same, but you're leading. You're leading.
They can't say we can't do it. They can decide where they want to invest the money.
That's a completely different story, because you're showing that it's possible. So on the recycling thing, Itay, I'm just thinking, I'm sure I had this question come up for me, and I'm sure the listeners will have it as well. So you're talking about recycling the product from the stonemasons, because there's lots of offcuts, and if it's high brick, that you don't have the issues with the silica. Yep. What about when people are renovating and they are taking out an engineered stone? And I mean, it's, high brick's still quite new. So, but if they're taking out an old stone and say it's a Cosentino stone, can that get recycled, or it's only at the stonemason level that products can get recycled?
So there are two levels. So I can tell you that again, in many parts of Europe, and in order to credit it as cradle to grave, we are collecting the stone after when someone do a renovation after 20 years, we have the ability to collect the stone, bring it back to the plant and crush it and recycle it.
So that's in Europe. So it's not possible in Australia yet.
It's possible, but unfortunately, to send it back on a truck, on a ship, and then on the truck again to the factory, probably will create more pollution.
Yeah.
Recycling. So then what we are doing in this case is the option of crushing the material and using it as gravel.
Okay. Well, it's still better than it going to skip into landfill.
Absolutely. So this is why, and this is the purpose of the stonemason, because when we are replacing a top, usually the same stonemason will be in the house, and we will basically take it off and install the new one. And by us as clients being responsible and say, hey, don't take it off and throw it, please, taking off and work with the municipalities or construction companies in order to recycle it. And then sometimes it's like a small fee added, because in the end of the day, of course, he has his own handling costs. It's something that we can do. Now, they have the contacts already because they are recycling the offcuts. So the same way they are recycling the offcuts, they can recycle also the countertop.
The old slabs. Yeah. It's really interesting because I wasn't aware that working with the municipalities and working with the government locally, you're able to then get them to recycle these products. So I suppose, you know, personally, I always view that Europe is far ahead from a sustainability perspective. So it's really great to hear you really talk about particularly WorkSafe Victoria and the government in Victoria in particular actually really working with these not the manufacturers, with the stonemasons to actually be able to recycle this content.
Yep. Definitely.
So, and you also you talked before about the fact that as part of the this circular economy, that you're showing the industry that products can now be produced in a much better way without such high content of silica. So I'm guessing that you are the leaders in this, that this is giving you a really big competitive advantage in terms of how you're producing, you're showing the industry that it's possible.
True.
So,
but this is what we are doing today. You know, you mentioned before that you saw me giving a talk in front of the A&D communities, and this is what I'm trying to do today. I'm trying to work with the A&D community and to share the responsibility, because us as manufacturers, first, we own the responsibility of changing the products, but then we need our partners from the A&D community to specify responsibly. Now, it doesn't mean to specify Cosentino, but to specify carbon neutral products, to specify low silica products, because as you said, in the end of the day, people are 50-50. 50% do care about the environmental aspect. 50% want to go with the cheaper option. And
that's right. And that's why we educate as well as just specifying it anyway. And just for the listeners, A&D is the architectural and design community, an acronym that you may not be aware of. So it is up to us as the architectural and design community to specify products, even if the client's not asking for it, as long as it's still going to give them the functionality and the usability, the durability, and all the other things that are important to them. And we certainly lead in that way in making sure that we're educating them as part of that process. And most of them are not going to say no to that.
True.
Particularly when there's, you're competitively priced anyway.
That's the point. And, you know, thinking about it, a difference of $50 per square meter eventually lead to a difference of $1,000 per kitchen. A kitchen that usually has a life of 12 to 15 years. What is it? It's so minimal, the investment that we as consumers are doing to making sure that we are making an impact. And it's not, you know, always there's the knowledge of, recycled materials are usually more expensive. Yeah, they are. But us as companies learn to share these costs eventually to bring better products.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And we're leading in the industry.
True. And one thing that's already make me feel very positive is the change that we are seeing from the big corporates in Australia, the construction corporates. And I want to give here a name as an example, two names. One is Lendlease and one is Mirvac.
Very, very big developers in Australia. Very big.
And you know what we see today? And I'm so happy to find this level of collaborative here in Australia. And again, coming from other markets, coming from the American markets, that is not as advanced as the Australian market in that sense, that working today, for example, with Mirvac and Lendlease, they are basically saying, hey guys, before we specify a color, not a product, we want to get the certification that this is a low content of silica product. And we are so happy. It's music to our ears.
Yeah. And that is really, really positive. And I think that's a bit of push and pull. People are asking for it. So consumers are wanting, they're asking more questions. They're pulling to make sure that they're more conscious and using sustainable products. But there's the push from the industry as well, and from legislation, from a government perspective, to say you're going to have to go down this path regardless if you want to or not. So that's such awesome news to hear. Exactly. Music to my ears. I use that expression a lot, that these big players, big national players, are really, really taking note and standing up. That's so awesome to hear.
I agree.
Really good.
I agree. And
so, sorry, Itay, I mean, the circular economy, it's really showing those 6 key points on how you're looking at the complete life cycle of a product and how that circular economy works. And I think that's really, really interesting. What are you most proud of in terms of what Cosentino are doing? I mean, there's so many things to be proud of, but you know, you're a world leading sustainable company, what you're producing. I love the fact that Cosentino is really big on their community, but you've been with them for 18 years. What's the thing you're most proud of with Cosentino and their sustainability credentials?
So I think it's basically, you can see it as 3 main legs: our environmental actions, social actions, and the government's actions. And if I want to do something specifically, I love the social aspects of this level. And, you know, talking about Cosentino, 43% of our staff are women. So it's a company at 6,000 people that almost 50-50. 76 different nationalities in one company. It's a company that's more than 92% of the work staff work on permanent contracts with everything that comes with the full contributions. It's a company that care about the people and making sure that the people will care about the environment. And this is,
and I bet, yeah, and that's a beautiful story. And I'm sure off the back of all of that, you have a lot of loyalty with your staff as well.
True. And, you know, without going to names, but, you know, I moved to this market a year ago. I came after 4 years working with Cosentino in the United States. And when I came here, we needed to change or to renew the way that Cosentino work here in Australia. And we went to a process of a reorganization of staff. And we found ourselves that leaders from our industry, from competitors, wanted to come to work with us because of it. Because they looked at us from the other side, from the other big competitors, and asked ourselves, hey, we are not doing anything. They are.
Yeah, and people want to work with progressive businesses. They want to work with, you know, companies that are going somewhere, doing things, really caring. So that all makes complete sense that people want to come and work with you too.
Yeah, and I think that in that matter, this is the thing that makes us proud the most, that our actions are being heard and eventually are being replicated, because there is one main goal, that we will be able to live in this planet in 100 and 200 years. And all science shows that unless we do something drastic yesterday, it will be very difficult. And if we can do it and eventually impact the rest of the industry to do the same, is our small contribution.
So in terms of your competitors, without naming competitors necessarily, you've gone through all these, you know, market leading or industry leading aspects in terms of sustainability. In your view, do you feel that what you're doing is well ahead of what the competitors are doing?
Unfortunately, lately we see some of our competitors moving their production to the Far East, in some countries where these actions are not getting the same level of focus because of the increased costs of raw material. So we need to say the truth, we are also living in a very challenging time. The war in Ukraine affected dramatically the cost of raw materials. You know, it started with everything that was with COVID, then with the big demand that led for a price increase, and then the war. So unfortunately, I see that some of our competitors are now taking the wrong direction even. And I can tell you that in the quartz industry, we are the only all-European company today in the market. All of our competitors, including the ones that are coming from my own home country, are moving their production lines to the Far East and to China. But we believe it will change, because we believe that the Australian people will speak, and we will, the big Australian companies will make the right decisions. They want to say, hey, if you want to continue to be a player in the Oceanian market and then worldwide, you have to follow this set of guidance, of rules.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, particularly now with the government change, there are much tighter regulatory requirements that we will need by 2030 and then 2050. So people have to take note and look at what they're using. And that, you know, that's commercially, but people care about it in their homes as well. They do care.
People care. And especially here in Australia, people care more in this specific country. And it's very happy for me as a foreigner to come to see it, that people care.
Yeah, oh, that's nice to hear, particularly because I know you've only been here 12 months coming from the Americas. It is nice to hear that we do care, because I certainly feel like sometimes it doesn't appear like we care because of what's happened on the political stage. But anyway, let's not get into politics, because that's going to open up a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, it's true. But no, just one word on it. It's not just about politics. And again, moving from the industry and talking about Australia, things like social equality in Australia is big.
It is.
Especially coming from a company, and again, I love United States. I saw it was my home for the last 4 years. But unfortunately, social equality there is not big. And then moving to a country that it's so big, that on one side it's a rich and it's very developed country, but then it's very balanced, is a very, I think it's a point to be proud of as Australians.
Yeah, it is. And it is a thing to be proud of. I completely agree. So I'm going to put the, you know, obviously the Cosentino website details. Is there any particular pieces of information that people can find out more about Cosentino? So any links or anything that we can put in the show notes for people to find out more about Cosentino's story, in particular the sustainable story, because you've got a lot of information on the website as it is
to remember that everything we discussed today is not just about countertops. Today, with the Cosentino products, you can use it for any use in construction, from flooring, cladding, ventilated facade, shower walls, basically everything that relates to the construction industry. So all the message of sustainability, it goes to all kind of products that we are using in our home.
Yeah, I mean, even sinks, you know, you can have your benchtop integrated, or the sink integrated into the benchtop. So I'm glad you did mention that, because I have been talking a lot about it being used as a benchtop or just as the product. So it can be seamless for people that don't like grout. This is a great product to be using. So yeah, that was a really good point to make.
And the next level is, even we distribute today in Australia shower bases. So we are offering a full kit, a part of countertops for the bathroom, that consists of shower bases, vanities, flooring, and cladding. So a designer or end user can build an entire kit of a Cosentino product, sustainable products, for his bathroom, not only for his countertops or for his external facade.
Which makes it really seamless and beautiful.
True.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Itay. Was there anything else? I mean, that's a really good sum up, actually, just referring to the other products. It's been really, really awesome to have you on the podcast, just to hear about, I mean, I learned a lot today as well, particularly about the community aspect of Cosentino, which seems to me like a piece that you're really, really proud of as well. And I think that people are now more and more community focused. I know that that's a big thing in Australia as well. It's community, it's looking after each other. And I think hearing that that's such a strong value for Cosentino was a really beautiful thing to hear from you today as well. But I really am grateful for your time. I know you're an incredibly busy man, but it was just so fabulous to hear all the things you had to say about how Cosentino are really leading the industry in sustainability, not just in what you're producing, but that closed circle economy. So thank you so much for sharing today and joining me.
Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Itay. Have a fabulous day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Forever Home. If you're ready to renovate or build a new home and you need help to create a beautiful and functional forever home, you can book a chat with me directly at whitepebbleinteriors.com.au/chat. Have a great day.